Again, I dare you. I double dare you, mother.
Get busy living. You get busy dying.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. And here we go.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Cult Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Maloof. With me, as always, my co-host, Dante Trowina. How you doing, Dante?
I'm doing great. I told you right before, I had a great time with this episode. So I think just from talking before, we're on opposite ends, which should make for an interesting little podcast here. Let's see what you're thinking.
Yeah, I just didn't like this episode at all. It just felt really clunky to me. It just felt like it was just a bunch of nothing, like just a bunch of random scenes bumping up against each other. I didn't like the editing with the intercutting and like the earlier part of the episode between the conversation with um Heather Glenn and Matt, and then cutting to Fisk and Vanessa. I also thought that's what's his name, Sam, Vanessa's boyfriend. What's his name
Oh,
again?
Adam. I thought he was dead.
I thought he was dead. So
He
then
was
he's
so
just
dead.
back.
Yeah.
And then this whole episode, I guess, is revolving around this kind of ball or gala or whatever that Fisk is throwing, and I wasn't invested in anything in this episode. I thought it just felt really forced, and I don't understand what this show is trying to do. So you have a different perspective, I think.
I think my perspective is I've been let down by the last couple weeks. So I wasn't asking for it to progress the story much here. I'm asking for it to kind of keep things moving into season 2 and give me an interesting episode, which I thought I got tonight. I had an awesome time with this episode. I think from just the first couple scenes, I was bought in. We can get into the specifics, but I think it was some of the better. I still don't love the intercutting. And I know like it's I thought about it when I was watching it, like us both, we're not big fans of the intercutting, but if this is how they're going to do it, I guess this is how they're going to do it. Like this is probably one of the better ones. If we're just taken out from the dumpster here, but honestly, I had a really good time with the episode. Just all in all, I was bought in the whole way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you were, because I just can't get behind this. I think the show has been getting progressively worse every episode, and this, I think, is by far the worst episode of the season, or it's my least favorite. I did not
Really?
like it at all.
Okay.
I just don't see what the point of this show is. Like, it just feels like there's no momentum. It just feels like we're just stuck in place. Nothing's really happening. Yeah, we have Bullseye, who finally comes back, who I was hoping was going to come back. I was hoping that we wasn't just going to go to jail and that was it. So we finally get him back. He escapes from prison, but I just it felt so forced and contrived, and like no reason for him to actually be escaping. I mean, we still don't know any of what his motivations were, other than the fact that Vanessa allegedly hired him to kill Foggy for some reason,
Yeah.
probably something to do with his case, with the case he was going to win, that he was celebrating on the night he was killed.
With Red Hook, yeah.
But I just, like, how did he escape? Why is he okay? So the whole
We
reason
saw how he escaped.
the whole reason that he escapes is that Matt goes to see him because he hears through the grapevine, which he always does, that Poindexter wants to meet him. So Matt goes to the prison, meets him. They talk about basically nothing. They just have they just exchange platitudes and just like kind of wax poetic to each other. And then Matt slams his head into the desk. He gets a cut on his forehead. Then he goes to the infirmary to get stitched up, where they just happen to, for some reason, they take him out of his the chains or whatever, the thing he has on his hands that stops him from being Bullseye. He's just sitting there with his hands out. Obviously, he escapes. But we don't see any of it. He kills the two guys, and then it just cuts to him getting on a bus. And then he shows up to the gala, and he's trying to kill Fisk, I guess, but Matt takes the bullet for him. I'm sure we'll see why he was trying to kill Fisk, but
Yeah.
I don't. That's all I have for you right now. I mean,
For me,
didn't
like
like it.
anytime somebody escapes from anywhere, people are fucking dipshits. We know that just
But we
in
didn't even
watching
see them being
in
dipshits.
any. Right. I mean, I'm talking about them undoing the hands. Like that was obviously like you're just asking for it at that point, being in a room. He's one of the most dangerous people in
Exactly.
Marvel to
So
me. He
why are
always
you letting
has
him
been.
loose? Why
So
is he getting let loose?
I have no clue. Like why would you even stitch that guy up? You
Well, I could say,
just
okay,
let
you
him,
stitch him up. That's
not
one
even,
thing.
not even, just let him be. If he's in Gen Pop already because of Mayor Fisk, oh well. Um, yeah, I was pretty engaged with it. I mean, seeing Bullseye in any episode just makes me lock in a little bit more. I have so much love for that character. I think Wilson Bethel just is fantastic as Bullseye, as always. Just regardless of what you think about the script or not, I think him as Bullseye, we can both agree is just a marvelous performance and fits right in with D'Onofrio as Fisk and with Cox as Daredevil. The start of the episode, fine, just kind of the same motions that we've been going through. Vanessa and Fisk trying to fix Red Hook. I did notice that this episode, I don't know if I'm looking for something or not, but it had a little bit more of a style to it, a little bit more of color grading per se, or like the Red Hook was foggy when they were there. It wasn't like this sunny. I feel like the show was so sunny in the first couple episodes with the whatever you want to say, the old team, the new team, whoever that's attributed to. Cool. At least they're trying to set somewhat of an atmosphere here. Um, the Daredevil and Heather debate. Going into that, I really enjoyed Buck showing up at the door for Heather Glenn and guest. I think that was a just a really fun little, how do they know that she's living with Matt? Obviously, Mayor Fisk keeps tabs on everybody in the city, and just Fisk is in his zone in this episode. I think he is probably the shining star of this episode for me. With what little screen time he has, I think you can tell D'Onofrio is having so much fun as Mayor Fisk in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice having D'Onofrio. He's great. The performance is always great, but just the show surrounding him, I think, is just really crumbling. I don't think it's doing anyone any favors at this point. Like, there's so many different weird plot threads we're following with whether it's Michael Gandolfini's character. He is like he's promoted to what is it, deputy mayor of communications, whatever.
This might have been the first time I bought in a bit to him. This might have been the
I
first
still
time
don't care about him.
I actually felt like it was Daniel and not Michael Gandolfini. I think they're really I think these two, like BB and Daniel, have been just underserved by the whole story leading up to this, so it doesn't help that they're pretty prominent in this episode, but for what they're doing on screen this episode, I think it's pretty interesting to me. I like BB knowing that Ben is like Fisk is the number one suspect in Ben Urich's murder. That felt like it was going to be a scathing line that shocked her, and it just didn't. And it shows that they wrote her with a purpose in the show a bit. So I'm not like looking forward to the big BB reveal or the big BB episode in next season, but I am like, okay, it actually serves something now. And I think Daniel's starting to serve something now at this point where he was serving absolutely nothing in the first 7 episodes. So I think he's going to have even more of a purpose going forward, which I'm okay with. Like at least we're getting something for side characters. We got the most Kirsten McDuffie by far. It's
Which is
only
still basically
it's
nothing.
only
She
yeah, it's only
does
10,
not do
15
anything.
lines, but they're trying to write these side characters in the show a bit. So I'm just like, okay, we could have had 7 solid episodes building them up before this, but I think this episode where maybe it falters for you is like the setup to all of it is half-assed or um, not consistent at all. So for me, I just kind of separated this episode in my mind, knowing that it was the new directors, and that's probably why I think I had a fun time with it because I did just completely separate it from the rest, knowing that it's okay. This is the vibe that I want to get from season 2. Let's see what they're doing because this is what we got going up. And I thought if this is the vibe of the rest of the show, I think the pacing was much better in this episode. I think the editing was the cleanest it's been, even with the cross cutting. It's by far the cleanest edit that the show's had because it's a consistent thought process throughout it. And I love the way like Poindexter's little world turning blue and Matt and Fisk in the light. Just some of the cinematography that they give us is much better than it has been in the show. So I'm much happier than I would be with the previous 6 episodes continuing into the next season.
Yeah, I think we had some cool visuals. I like the final shot of Matt in like that red spotlight laying on the ground. I liked, yeah, the blue kind of accents we get when Bullseye is introduced and kind of throughout the episode. But yeah, I just don't. There's not a lot here that I enjoyed, honestly. Like, and I really want this show to be good. And I think as we've gotten along, it's kind of just gotten progressively more stale. And I was been giving it some passes in the first few episodes, hoping that it would improve as it went along. And I think it's only gotten worse. So I mean, I didn't completely hate this episode, but it's definitely my least favorite so far. It just
Jeez.
doesn't feel like anything real to me, honestly. It doesn't feel like anything really happened in this episode besides Matt getting shot at the end and Bullseye escaping. That's really the whole point. But I guess Matt is having some problems with Heather, and I guess the other big thing that happens in this is Vanessa kills Adam, who we already thought was
Yeah.
dead. So I
Yeah.
know
Yeah. That was a weird. I
I
agree with you.
he was like obviously dead, right? Before like Fisk
Very,
beat him with
very
a
dead.
hammer, right?
Yeah.
Like killed him. And then he's just like he's still there. It's just so this had to have been like a reshoot or something to give Vanessa something to do and give her character a little bit more like room to grow or so they can finally kind of end that part of the story and then bring Fisk and Vanessa back together. It
Well, they just
just
shouldn't have had at the end five or six it was. They shouldn't have had the Fisk scene with Adam if they were going to do this. You
right.
know, they could have had a scene with him and Adam talking or him, just monologuing again to Adam about when I was a boy. But you didn't need to have them have the fight. And I agree with that. Like it just felt weird in this episode. I like what it serves in this episode, but in the grand scheme of the show, it's just kind of like I felt like we had that moment already with Adam. And I was actually more excited to see like Vanessa finding a dead Adam. I think that would have been more interesting to me, just with what we had already gotten. But her killing him is also an interesting thread. It's just because we haven't gotten the proper prefacing for it. That it just I can agree with you on that it was just a confusing scene all around.
Yeah, that's I think a good way to put this episode for me is just confusing. Like, yes, I was able to follow the plot of the episode itself, like I understand what happened, but I don't really understand why anything happened. We have one episode left, so it's this is all going to be resolved or at least somewhat. This weird kind of Frankenstein of a story we have right now, where I mean, what could the resolution even be next week? Is that Bullseye like what we were maybe going to find out what Bullseye's true motives were in killing Foggy and going after Karen. I mean, I guess that's interesting, but that's not something we've been set up to want to know up until the penultimate episode of the season. So other than that, I don't really see like where we're going to end here or what the point of any of this really was.
Yeah, it very much feels like it's picking up from episode one and all the chunks that they've reshot, right? Like it's almost like they want you to immediately forget Muse and the bank heist and even White Tiger kind of to an extent. And it just wants you to remember like, hey, everything we've reshot, now here's somewhat of a payoff or in motion episode with that. Because I think we get all the characters that they've been wanting to write in this episode. We get a little bit of Cherry exposition and advice, as always.
He just like
Um,
waltzes in. I was
right.
literally thinking during that scene when he's having the kind of exposition chat with the bartender lady. I'm like, the only thing that could make this worse is if Cherry showed up right now. And then on cue, he just is in the scene. He doesn't even walk in the door. Matt just says, "Oh, hi, Cherry," and he just is standing next to him. Like
I was
it's
fine with him visiting Josie. I was totally fine with that. Her calling him a hobo and letting him come in and talking about how she doesn't want to take a penny from Fisk. Like, okay, cool. It's not a scene that I need, but I wasn't mad at the scene. And then yeah, our boy walks in, and before he even walks in, Matt, oh, there's Cherry. And I'm just like, motherfucker, he's sneaking his way back into this show every fucking week. Um, he, if he's tailing Matt at some point, maybe he just gets in the crossfire with Poindexter and becomes a casualty at some point,
we
which
can
I don't
hope.
think I don't think either of us would be either a I think we'd be definitely moved by it in a good way, if that were to happen. But man, dude, I actually did like I had a great time with this episode. I was so excited to hop on this. So I feel bad that you don't get the same excitement that I do. Um, but I think a
I'm
lot
glad
of
you
it
liked
does,
it.
and I totally get, yeah, and I totally get where you're coming from and what you didn't like about it. And I think I was able to this week like draw a line in my head and be like, all right, episode 8 and 9 are not going to conclude shit. It just needs to be entertaining and keep the plot in motion for season 2. And I think they're starting to tell, it's crazy. Like in episode 8, they're starting to tell the story that they wanted to tell. Like this is really the story they wanted to
Yeah,
tell
from the
from the
first
start.
episode. That's been the setup, I guess, to this point. But then we had so much other random shit
This
going
this
on
would
in
have
the
been a
season.
great episode 5. This would have been an
Right. Yeah,
amazing
like three
episode
episodes
5.
ago, yeah, it would have been a lot better. Would have made more
And so
sense.
from a TV standpoint, I totally get it. And like the show standpoint, I get it. I liked like this show felt like an issue of Daredevil, which I just loved. Like it felt like just a little bit over the top. Matt going through just absolutely destroying his life without realizing it. Like he's so, and that's why I'm okay with him going to Poindexter in prison because it's just Matt not even thinking about it. Just like, okay, he wants to see me, he can see me. And then he goes in there with no plan whatsoever. Like Poindexter starts to talk and he says, "You shut your fucking mouth," to him.
Hmm.
Like he very much goes in there with no idea whatsoever of what
He
he
just goes there
actually wants,
just to go there, basically.
just to go there. And I like that. Like I'm actually okay with that because that's so in character for Daredevil, just being a like, not sure of what his goal is, but having some sort of pursuit of justice, whatever he thinks it may be. And I love him slamming his head and saying "guard." He starts slamming his head on the table. I thought that was pretty funny. Um, I think like between Cox D'Onofrio and Wilson Bethel, they all give great performances here. D'Onofrio, especially for me, like I think he was really snapping into Mayor Fisk and like the old Kingpin, in the white suit. You can see he's just loving the gala. Like he's got that smirk on his face. He's bringing Swordsman Jack into the back room, and I'm just telling you, you're a vigilante. I can send my
It
task force, or you can give a donation.
is he a vigilante though? We never seen him
No,
do
no,
any
not at all.
vigilante
But
shit whatsoever.
but he can send the task force on him and say he was, and say he was the swordsman.
I guess he's the
He can,
swordsman. He just
like right.
because he has a nickname that's like blackmail that Fisk has over him. That whole scene
And
I thought was pretty
and this
silly.
is this is this is where your problems are, and I completely agree. Like Marvel has not set up street level well at all. From Hawkeye into this show into, and now it's like they really want to launch, like they're going all in now in this episode on Mayor Fisk, and they really want to launch that from here. So I totally like I I'm not as reserved about it, but I feel the same things where I'm just like, okay, like we're getting kind of jerked around by Marvel on what they feel is right to set up week to week. Like they had no plan or outline for these seasons of TV. And going back and watching Daredevil and watching The Defenders and Jessica Jones, it's like they very clearly had to plan season to season what they wanted to do and accomplish. And Marvel TV from the start has not been that whatsoever.
Exactly.
Whatever you think about the shows, good or bad, like they have not been setting up shit besides the Loki Kang stuff, which isn't setting up anything either.
Well, I don't
At
need a
this
show
point,
to set up some big thing in the MCU. I just need it to be a well thought out
right?
season of television, and
But
this obviously
there's
is
no
not that.
roadmap. There's no battle plan. There's no, and even with this show, like what I'm so pissed about is like I think I'm not to like crown myself. I'm just like I think I thought of it great as like, yeah, this would be a great episode 5. This would be a great middle of the season. Like imagine this as like the old mid-season finale or whatever you want to say of a TV show. I'd be stoked, going into the second half of the season. But I completely agree. We're like, this shouldn't be episode 8. But with what we have now, this is so much better to me than what the show was for the last 3 episodes, especially, and just where it was kind of heading with the CW type writing that was going on. I think this was definitely not that. Um, do you have anything to bounce off of? Sorry.
I think yeah, as far as dialogue goes, it's probably better. I think some of the technical aspects in these later episodes have probably been a little bit better than the first few episodes, but I would kind of honestly at this point, I would have liked to see that first version of the show and then compare it to this and see what really was the better idea. Because if this version of the show is supposed to be, oh, don't worry, we knew we were making a bad show, so we stopped that and then we fixed it, and now this is the good show. If this is the good version, that's really concerning to me, is that this is supposed to be, we fixed it, we learned from the mistakes, we saw we were going in the wrong direction with the show when we course corrected it. how did you course correct it? I mean, I can see some of the seams are so obvious. We can see changes that were made, but I'm not sure that all the changes were for the better because this show is just so underwhelming, I think. And I'm done giving it a pass. Like the first half of the season, I did enjoy it, and I was hoping that it would get better. And like I already said, I think it's gotten worse. So I don't really want to give it a pass and say, well, let's just wait for season 2, which obviously we will be watching season 2, and I will be anticipating season 2 in hopes that it really is like the version of the show that this is trying to be. But I don't want to give Marvel any more passes, because if you don't go into making a TV series with an idea of what that TV series is going to be, how can you possibly hope to make anything good? And that's exactly what they did here.
We are both absolutely on the same page that I don't blame the original writers or the new writers, showrunners. I blame Marvel for this shit entirely.
Yeah,
Like, this is a colossal mess up by them because the acting's been good. We've been giving good moments,
absolutely.
but ultimately, like, yeah, I was more the last 3 episodes. I liked the Muse stuff when it was on screen, but overall, I was pretty underwhelmed by 5, 6, and 7. I think that's where I was really dipping on the show and down on it, especially off of episode 4 with the Punisher. And I just, again, like, I think this is the first time this show has shown a real roadmap for what it wants to do in the future. And or at least where it wanted to go for the whole time with Mayor Fisk. I feel like they've been holding him back slowly, and sometimes they're like filling time with these intercuts, especially in the previous episodes, where it feels like they're just filling time to make scenes get longer, where it could be like a 20-second or 30-second scene of Fisk
Right.
yelling at somebody,
But we have to cut in between
and we
another
have to cut in
whole
between
setup.
to make it longer, right? Or to give it some runtime. And that's not on any of the directors to me. That's just on how the show from the start has been colossally messed up by Marvel and
I
mishandled.
agree. I agree. I think I don't want to blame like the creatives behind this show as far as like the writers, the directors, those sorts of people, because I think you're right that they're probably doing the very best with what they've been given
Right.
or what they've been told to do by the higher ups at Marvel. So I don't think you can really lay the blame on them. I think just this entire late stage post Endgame Marvel or Marvel formula, Marvel way of doing things is not sustainable, and it's obviously led to a lot of subpar releases in the past like what 5 6 years since Endgame. Basically, it's not great. Like some stuff
Dude,
has been good that we've enjoyed, but I think the formula is just not sustainable.
this is something DC would do with like a director's cut of the Daredevil show. Like release the new cut of the show, you know? Like,
Right.
this is totally a DC roadmap type thing. And I just they got imagine like you come in as the second directors and you're told like, hey, us and the actors don't really like the first version of the show, but there are 6 episodes filmed and we need to meet a release date within the next year. And you can't actually scrap those first 6 episodes that we shot. You just have to kind of rework them and make them better, please. Like, they got dealt such a shit hand, man.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just I I think this was like to me the better version of what they could end up doing. And this is for me the stuff that they're building on in this part of the show with the task force, with Fisk, with like the directions the characters and the world is going in as a whole. I'm much more interested in this as a whole than the therapy drama. And I like Matt in the courtroom, but I don't want to see 18 episodes of lawyer Matt Murdock. Like, Matt Murdock's at his best when he's conflicted about being a lawyer in the justice system. So it's crazy that you get 7 years again. We say this every episode, or I say this every episode, but you get 7 years to write one of the best characters in all of Marvel. Like, just so well rounded as a character, so well thought out. You have years of stories to pull from, and you fuck it up. There's no other way to say it. This show is fucked up, and that's not, again, like, I actually like the product on screen here, but I can totally agree with you in that it is just, this shouldn't be the penultimate episode.
Yeah,
This
and
shouldn't be what we're getting till.
yeah, this should not be the eighth episode out of nine. It doesn't
No.
make any sense. It has no momentum. It just doesn't feel right at all. Um, I think that this show basically is surviving on the goodwill that I already have built up for all these characters. Of course, we love Charlie Cox Daredevil. We love Wilson Fisk. We love Bullseye, even though we barely had him in this season. He's a great character.
He's
we
a
like
scene
him a
stealer.
lot, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's a scene stealer. Wilson Bethel gives a great performance. But that's really like where it ends for me. Like as far as everything else that's happening around these characters, it's diminishing returns like week to week. I'm like less and less invested in everything that's happening around them, especially since the Muse stuff, because I thought that's where we were going with this. And I thought we were getting a cool new character, villain that we were actually going to get to learn about, and someone that was actually going to grow in front of us, a character that we didn't know anything about, and we were going to get to learn about. And that's what this season is ultimately trying to do, right? Is introduce us to somebody new. And while Fisk is doing things in the background, while Punisher, other things are happening. And as soon as Muse died, I think we lost a lot of momentum here. And now they're trying to pick back up on the Bullseye plot, which we didn't even know was a plot to begin with.
Yeah,
from the first
it became
episode.
a plot. It became a plot.
It became a plot, and it did feel like in the first episode, obviously because Bullseye survives his fall off the building, he goes to jail. We know we're gonna see him again, but it doesn't feel like it just doesn't feel like it works. It doesn't feel like it needs to, like, this is where we need to go here.
You know what it feels like? It feels like they were told they could shoot the first episode and shoot episodes 8 and 9. And they wanted to tell a Bullseye story, and rightfully so, because Bullseye is fucking incredible and Wilson Bethel is amazing as Bullseye. But this is how we're getting it. Which is a disservice to everything going on screen and all the plot threads that they're trying to juggle. And I just hope from here, like, it sucks that like it sucks that it's episode 8. But going into episode 9 and into season 2, I guess, like, I hope we just get a coherent storyline. Like, I really think they are trying to give us a coherent storyline coming from here. And I think the old show was going to be more villain of the week and like White Tiger of the week. And I love the White Tiger episode, but White Tiger was a week and a half, basically, an episode and a half. And Muse was 2 episodes, I guess, so it was very like, it has the one-off episode with the bank robbery, which, like, I could not watch 9 episodes of that old show. I could not watch 18 episodes, what they had originally planned of that old show, because I don't want a something of the week story with Daredevil. The character is too good for that. He's too good for just little outlying situations that happen every week. He's too rich. He has too much history behind him and too much character motivation behind him to be subjected to that. And I'm fine with having offshoots every now and then, but to me, like, I do want a coherent plot, because like season 3 is one of the best plots in superhero media, not TV, not movies, like media. It is one of the best overall plots in a season of TV. And like season 1, season 2, they all have thought out plots, and even season 2 bounces back and forth a bit, but still at the end of the day, it's one vision of that show. And
Exactly.
so that's why, like, season 2 isn't great, but it has amazing moments and it has payoff to those moments, and it sets up season 3. It's like what a TV show should be. And this is just not, it's such a crappy disservice to the character, because I think we've been excited about different things in the show, but we've been overall, like, you're trying to give it good grace. I'm upset that it's not hitting for you here. Like, this is, I think, the first time I'm actually excited for the next week, like, full on, since I like the end of episode 6 with him and Muse. But since episode 4, it's kind of been just not my cup of tea, and not the Daredevil that I want to see. So this is more in line with what I want Daredevil to be on screen. So I was much happier with this episode.
Look, it's really hard to sit here and try to talk about what the show would have been otherwise, because bottom line, we don't know what it would have looked like, right?
Yeah.
We see moments that we can guess and probably assume safely that were part of that old vision, and then you can again see the stuff that's been added, more or less. But I don't know. I think I would argue that I would rather see the fully realized version of that show when they actually knew where it was going, versus this weird, like, Frankenstein, like, modification of a show that we've gotten, where we've course corrected halfway through and tried to pivot into something else, and used weird editing and reshoots and try to reshape the narrative to go in a different direction, it's like caught in this weird kind of limbo where
Yeah.
it's trying to do like a Netflix style season where it's not episodic, right? It is episodic, I guess, or I guess it's yeah, it's like following like one overarching narrative to the whole season versus like something where it's more procedural, like a Law and Order with Daredevil. I don't know. I mean, I would argue that maybe a fully realized version of that original script might have been more satisfying in a way because at least you know what you're getting. Like, you know, okay, this is 18 episodes. There are a lot of these episodes are not going to like talk to each other really, and that's okay. But I don't like trying to come in halfway through and try to change the whole thing and like morph it into something else because it feels
Well,
like you try to do that and it doesn't work.
you gotta stick to one or the other. They're like trying to have it both ways somehow, which is just gross for both teams. Like, and you might want the other show, I might want the new show, but I just want a show that's consistent and a show
Right.
that dies on its own sword and doesn't get chopped from the editorial room, and the higher ups at Marvel. Like, I'd I'd be bummed out if we got the old show and it sucked, but I guess I'd be pissed at Marvel for different things, but I wouldn't be pissed at them for just over meddling because that's what this is. Like, this
Yeah.
is
Well, it's very meddled
forcing.
with. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like they come in and just totally tried to change everything and you can totally tell and you can just totally see where the edits have been made and it just feels super rocky and uneven and I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me.
yeah. They're not doing our boy justice.
No.
Um, I I again, like, I'm not gonna be ashamed to say it. I had a fucking great time with this episode. How'd you feel about the tooth?
The tooth?
In
I mean,
the
sure, I was thinking like
awesome.
really he spits the tooth into his face like sure, yeah, that's a fun bullseye moment. Like that's fun
That's
stuff.
ripped right from the page, in one of the Punisher runs actually. But he kills the guy with the tooth and that, and I like how I was waiting, like, is he really gonna kill him? Because as soon as I saw him crack his jaw, I looked across the room. I was like, oh, like I knew exactly what they were gonna be doing, and he smiles with the tooth and shoots it at him. I thought, like, is he gonna kill this guy with the tooth? I think that'll be a little bit, like a little bit less believable. But I like that the guy
Hmm.
was like, "What the hell?" He grabs his eye, and Daredevil just breaks, or sorry, Poindexter just breaks out immediately. When he got on that bus too, I was like, "Oh my God, this bus!" I was so nervous for the other police officers on that bus, and I thought that was gonna turn into something, but didn't. And not in a bad way. In that, I was just like, and the guy turns to him like, "Rough day, huh?" I'm just like, "Oh my God, like this bus is so screwed." And then it just cuts away, and you're like, "Okay." And you never know. Like, I think it went off peacefully. I think they would have shown us if there was some sort of conflict there. But I just thought that was a funny scene. Like, him loading up on that bus was just waiting for something to happen, with him on the bus. This was the first time that I actually kind of bought into the anti-vigilante task force too. I
Seems
like
like he's
them.
actually using them in an interesting way, and that's
I
cool.
love them so much more when it's just unabashedly Fisk's private army
Yeah.
than this anti-vigilante task force just sounds so dumb. I'm sorry. Just as a concept, I never really loved it in the comics, and I just like when it's, no, listen, they're my security detail. They're my
Yeah.
own. And Cole North standing to the right of him there. I love Powell dipping the guy's hand in the deep fryer, and just bitching the commissioner basically.
Yeah. That was a
I
good
don't
scene.
I
I
don't
definitely
answer to
like that.
you.
Yeah, I don't answer to you anymore. Like I think that stuff is actually interesting. Fisk
That
using
felt
these
like
guys
the
as his
old
own
show.
army. Hmm.
That felt like something that would happen in the old show, and that felt like something that would happen in the comics. That felt like a total, like, Fisk's character causes stuff like this, and I really liked that. Um, I like that it led to BB and the commissioner talking too. Like, I think that's an interesting mole going into probably going into season two. I
Yeah.
think that's where that one definitely goes. Out of the things they've been setting up for episode 9, however you want to put it, I think that's something that definitely continues into the next season and becomes, a talking point, at least with BB and her knowing that Fisk was the number one suspect, for Ben Urich's murder. That was an interesting choice, and I actually think that puts BB's character in a way more interesting position. Like she's not just a ditzy girl who's a an upbeat reporter. I don't mean that as an insult to her as a character. It's just she was just a reporter that kind of uses Daniel a bit, but that was about it. Like she wasn't we didn't see her like really reporting on stuff, and I want to see her take that Ben Urich slot and be a real reporter. And so I hope in season 2, like if you're gonna give her screen time as a strong female reporter that is cracking down on things in the city. Like I am so cool with that. Um, and then I really liked Matt at the gala and him just kind of stumbling through the door and like bumping into people because he's so focused on Fisk that he can't really control like where he's actually going. He's bumping into people as he's going. Him and Heather talking, and Heather just you don't even know what I'm saying right now. And oh
Yeah.
what? Yeah, like yeah I do. And then she starts talking again. He immediately zones out onto Fisk.
Hmm.
Like oh my gosh, that he's falling apart a bit when he's around Fisk. And then the shot of uh when Matt's telling Heather that Fisk is a monster and it's Fisk doing the finger guns on the
Yeah.
dance floor. I loved that. Like I loved the whole gala scene. I loved everything that had to do with all the I was it was the first time where I felt like they attempted something where like we're all in this gala and things are going on around the scenes. And the swordsman stuff and Fisk strong arming people into making donations and Mayor Fisk just smiling there and Matt and Heather their ongoing conflict that's actually been set up now and I buy into why the conflict's there. And it's funny because some of the maybe weak writing or repiecing of the show has made it into where Heather can say like you're not even in my life. And I think it's interesting that they're using that now, um, maybe using kind of the re-edits to their strength in that way. And I hope they do because we're not going to care about a Heather Matt confrontation, but Heather has something to stand on right now that's very real, and we've seen that as the audience. So I think they're doing a great job with that. I love Daredevil's senses again. Um, and the confrontation with Vanessa, I think, is the most interesting thing or interesting predicament that Vanessa's been put in this entire season, by far.
Yeah, she actually is doing something, right?
Yeah,
She
yeah.
finally has been given a reason to be in this show, so that's a plus. I think it will be interesting to see what happens next week.
I think
Is
she's a goner.
You think she's gonna die? I thought Bullseye was gonna kill her. I
I
thought
thought so
Bullseye was
too.
going to try to kill her. So I'm interested to see why he tried to kill Fisk. Was it because Fisk had him moved in the
I
prison
think
to
so.
try to get him killed? And also, how did he not get killed? Because he's walking around in general, whatever it's called, general lockup
Gen
with
Pop with a
Gen Pop with his hands locked up. So then he just survived that no problem. So
I think
Matt
he
can
survived for like a day though, right? Because they even said when they called Buck, like, please tell me he's just dead.
right, but
Like
I think that was
I
their
think it
goal,
was
right?
one day, like it was 1 or 2 days. This episode took time in, so it was him getting moved there, him meeting with Matt, him getting stitched up, and then him escaping. And so maybe that's like something to point out about the editing is that we maybe don't know the timeline on this
Yeah,
episode,
I
but
couldn't tell.
I think it was just a day or two. Like I think she got the invitation, and then the gala was the next night.
When
Or
did you
that
get an invitation for a gala that's happening the next day?
I've never been. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, if the mayor asks you, how can you refuse your number one marriage counseling client? And no more marriage counseling. Vanessa says they don't need it
Yeah,
anymore.
thank God.
So
I
thank
was
fuck.
happy. I was happy
That
to see
was
that.
that was very clearly like one of those rewrite type things where they're like, all right, let's
Let's just finish that plot point up real quick.
they're they're like for as jumbled as the show is, I thought they cleaned their hands pretty well of like they're not it's so weird like they have the line last week where like all this is fake and that was definitely a reshot line too. Like there's no way that line was in the original show just from because it's you can see Heather's ADR in that scene too, like it glares out. um and so him saying it's fake last week and then this week them just kind of cutting strings, or the old version of the show too. It kind of sucks for both writers again. Like it's the same debate we have earlier in this episode about like what Marvel put them both in just bad spots to be inherently get against each other. Um, and no matter what vision, again, I just wanted a complete vision. So I'm I'm excited for season 2 based on the little pieces that we know for certain that the new writers have written and directed. And I like where they're going with the stuff that they set up in their own first episode. At least they're not, it feels weird to bring it back now, but at least they're not ignoring it either. So it's like, okay, this is very much without you making it the overarching plot line. This is the overarching plot line that you want to tell in your show.
Exactly.
And so let's get to it. Like I'm cool with that at least. I'm cool with them. It doesn't feel like they skipped steps. It felt like steps were just kind of missing in there. I know it's kind of similar, but it feels like a difference to me where it doesn't feel like they fast forwarded into it. It just felt like they didn't address it as well because it wasn't their show in the middle. So, um, I all in all, like I'm cool with the direction that it's going. I love again how they use Matt's senses, how the lens changed again, and it was like the same exact sound from episode one with the little bottle clink and the zooming in on Poindexter. It was the same exact sound that he had when he was zooming in on Foggy's conversation, changing his lens in his ear,
Yeah.
as well as the lens of the show. So I had a fun time with it. I hate again that they're doing licensed music at the end. I guess this was
Yeah.
the better licensed music per se.
I guess
I
this was a
wasn't
better needle drop at the end, but still.
right,
It,
but it has no place in this show. I think
that's
that's one
honestly
thing.
I don't even care about that. Like that's the least of my complaints with this episode was the music at the end.
That's my nitpick for the episode. My disappointment with the show is just the way the shows come together, and that's not on. To me, it's not on this episode. I had a really good time with this episode. I think episode 7 for me was by far the weakest. Maybe when the season ends, we can, depending on how you feel about it, we can talk about it a little bit more, like episode by episode, just general thoughts on each one, quickly, rapid fire. But to me, I think like 5 and 7 were the weakest. Just why do we have a filler episode as episode 5?
Yeah,
Like
you
it's
could
the
have just
midpoint
cut
of the
that
season,
completely out of the series and nothing
right?
would have changed.
It would have been, and I think they couldn't have reshot an episode because they didn't have the timeline, or it wouldn't have fit because it would have had to be episode 5 probably, and they wouldn't have been able to put something that made sense as episode 5 because Muse would have had to come into play later. And so they really shot themselves in the foot hard, I think, with the filler episode. I think that was the biggest misstep in the structure. And the biggest, like, that was the sore thumb on the what the show could have been and what the show wants to be now. I think that, like, some of the middle of this season felt like a She-Hulk procedural, and I don't need to see that. I want to see Daredevil in court, but I don't need to see that. So I'm bought into what they're building towards, and I'm genuinely excited for next week. I think we'll see how long the finale is. I felt like this episode was a complete episode as far as like I felt like everything they wanted to tell got told in this episode. Sucks that we just had a little cliffhanger with Matt. I think
I
we're a
wonder
little
what's
bit
gonna happen. I wonder if he's gonna
right.
die.
No, right, but just the situation of the gala.
Yeah.
Just the overall, it's right. That's
Is he
the
gonna
twist.
die?
That's the twist of the new show. That's the new director's ideas. But it sucks that was a cliffhanger because I just think like in episode 8 you shouldn't do a cliffhanger like that. I get you want to get people along for the finale,
But if you
and
watch 8 episodes, you're not gonna not watch the 9th.
right,
Like you don't need a cliffhanger to
right.
keep you hanging on for another episode.
Well, and to me, it's like you're not gonna exactly what you said, and as well, like if this was episode 8 in an 8 episode series so far of setting up this entire plot line, and we got the plan revealed to us that like, oh, it was Vanessa, and we got other scenes with Dex in prison, and he finally escaped, and like, okay, this is pretty crazy, like it would have been a domino moment for us, and the cliffhanger would have been such a like, oh shit moment, and like everything's coming together. Whereas they threw everything together in this episode. I thought they did a pretty good job with tying in episode 8 to episode 1 with basically no setup in between besides them mentioning Red Hook 3 or 4 times every episode. But I I think they did an admirable job piecing together what they want their show to be. I don't get the cliffhanger because the show hasn't gotten us good grace for a cliffhanger. It's not Game of Thrones in like
Right.
2012 where we're just itching for next week's episode because it's been 6 episodes of complete dominance on screen and amazing writing. It's not that. So the show hasn't bought that goodwill to leave us hanging off a cliff. It needs to wrap some things up and give us more to be ready for in season 2. So my bet is next episode, at the end of the episode, they're going to leave us on a cliffhanger that Matt is Daredevil. It's going to be revealed to the world by Fisk.
That's a safe
and
bet.
and we'll get into season 2. And so we go on.
Yeah, that's a pretty safe bet. Like the last thoughts I have on this episode and on this season as a whole up to this point is it's being torpedoed by clunky storytelling. That's like the main downfall here. And I think nothing is like more indicative of that than in this episode, in the recap going into this episode, you get a weird snippet of Fisk saying, I wonder if this desk was old Mayor LaGuardia's desk.
Right.
And then into the episode, we get a really nice loop. We tie the loop on that incredible plot thread where he goes, Vanessa has told me this was old Mayor LaGuardia's desk. And
all he had to do was ask Vanessa.
Fucking amazing. Guys,
Right.
God tier storytelling. Thank God we fucking finally found out.
There
Like,
you
who
go.
fucking cares? And that's my whole point.
The mystery, the payoff.
That's my whole point and my whole problem with this series up to this point is the storytelling is incredibly clunky and stupid and not worthy of these characters. And that's all I've got.
You think that was something where they're just trying to wrap up, like, all right, we started this horse shit about the LaGuardia disc. We got to wrap it up.
No one even fucking needed to know. What?
We don't need to wrap it up as well. Exactly. Like I wasn't pondering week to week if that was LaGuardia's desk.
Who fucking
cares? If I really cared, I could have Googled it.
Yeah,
you know,
I guess. Like I didn't even remember that
if
was
I really
a thing.
cared, right?
So
if that
stupid.
line really left me in suspense, I would have just, hey, is LaGuardia's desk in the mayor's office? Yes, it is. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think Fisk could have Googled it.
Any final thoughts? That's all I've got.
Oh, well, I hope like at some point, if we get a really good season 2 and build off this vision, I hope you come to like this episode if you ever revisit it, because I really did have a great time with it. I like the direction they are building towards, because I think knowing what we're building towards feels like more than what we were really building towards. And now seeing the conclusion of Muse, we see where that story was going, because that was what the story was through those 6 middle episodes. So if we're on a new roller coaster ride now, put us on it and go with it and give us one coherent vision into season 2. And I think we'll both be happier and the show will be better for it. That's what I got.
All right. We'll be back next week to talk about the finale, episode 9 of Daredevil Born Again. Hopefully, the finale. Already. I know it feels like this show's gone by super fast. So we'll see what happens. I am obviously going into it with an open mind. If obviously listening to my thoughts on this series so far, they've been somewhat uneven, but overall I've been having a fun time watching this show. So I'm definitely looking forward to the finale next week. We'll see what they've got for us.